Well, good morning, my friend. It is Thursday morning. Welcome to the Pastor's Podcast. Good to have you along with me today as we are starting to finish out the week. Had a great service last night in the services. Wednesday night service taught on the Esau principle, and those who were there learned a valuable truth that will help them in their life. Had a great service, great crowd, a lot of just God working in the hearts. Evangelist Morris or Missionary Morrissey was with us from the Philippines and had a good time with him as well. And now looking forward to the weekend as we get ready to go into the weekend and to see what God's going to do here as we start our campaign out. CIA Christians in Action. Looking forward to that. Maranatha Baptist Church. Now let's get busy. Invite some people out this Sunday. Looking forward to a wonderful day to see what God can do for us. And I'm sorry about getting back to you just a little bit later this morning than I normally do. Had to drop my car off to get it worked on a little bit, then got to the church, had to get some business done. This was my first opportunity really to sit down and get with you, and I'm glad that you're with me today. Hope that you've had a good start to your Thursday as we serve the Lord today. Well, today I want to talk to you about the obscurity of life building. The very important truth about this. In Acts chapter 15 and verse 37, the scripture says, "And Barnabas determined to take with them John, whose surname was Mark." When we talk about important people in the New Testament, it is easy to think of the prominent names of those who seem to do great works. It's not hard to think of the Apostle Peter, the disciple who was one of the inner three disciples who Christ always called upon and who was used to preach at the day of Pentecost. It's not hard to think about the Apostle Paul, who is responsible for penning over one half of the New Testament. But maybe the most important man in all the New Testament, other than Jesus Christ, was a man by the name of Barnabas. Now, we know that name. We hear of Barnabas, but I don't believe that we understand this man's greatness. It was Barnabas who took interest in a young Saul and helped him to become the great Apostle Paul. It was Barnabas who took interest in acquitting John Mark. Think of those two names now, and gave him another chance to do something with his life. You see, John Mark did something with his life, and God used him to pen the book of Mark. Had it not been for the obscurity of a Barnabas in the scriptures, we would not have over half of the New Testament. Barnabas understood that he didn't have to have the limelight to serve God. He'd rather spend his life building lives and let those lives and let God determine how to honor him. That's what his desire was. Now, most life builders will not stand in the limelight. They will not be the one on the front stage, but they live in obscurity, working with people who most would disdain. We may not know the names of these life builders right now, but they will most certainly be honored at the judgment seat when God brings them into the forefront. Life builders often come in the form of a Sunday school teacher, a bus worker who builds a life that most don't even want that type of child in their church. However, these great life builders who work in obscurity are the ones who provide future Sunday school teachers, bus workers, missionaries, pastors, evangelists, full-time servants that will minister in the limelight in front of others, but that one in the obscurity, in the background, who built that life, often never gets recognized. To be a life builder, you have to be willing to work in obscurity and have a vision of what God can do through broken lives. The life builder sees in a person's life what others cannot see. They see in that life of the addicted a person who is clean and grows in the Lord until God calls them to do something mighty. They see how God can take a broken life and remove the sin that's breaking that life and turns them into a mighty tool of the gospel to show of the mighty power of God's grace, of what God can do in the life of somebody if somebody's just willing to take the time to build that life. Now, you'll not be a life builder until you can see beyond the brokenness that sin causes in a life. Moreover, to be a life builder, you must believe in those who others quit on. Paul quit on John Mark, but Barnabas still believed in him. Many will wonder why you still work with someone. As a life builder, you can never give up on people. My friend, life builders work with people who others give up on and no longer want to be around them. But you'll never be a life builder if you're not willing to be misunderstood as you do work with people. Understand, people are going to disappoint you. People at times are going to quit, but you can't give up. You got to keep on going. Furthermore, to be a life builder, you must be willing to do the hard and dirty work it takes to build lives. It's not easy building lives, my friend. In fact, it's often frustrating. But the life builder doesn't let their frustration in a person's regression in their walk with God stop them from continuing to work with people until they become a trophy of grace. Now, let me ask you, do you have what it takes to become a life builder? You may not get noticed much on this earth, but the rewards of building lives will be rewarded by seeing the great impact that those that you work with, what they do with their life. Do you understand the Apostle Paul? Nobody wanted anything to do with the Apostle Paul when he first got saved, but Barnabas took notice of him. When John Mark quit, Paul wanted nothing. I think Paul kind of forgot what he was when Barnabas took notice of him and had Paul stopped and said, well, hold on. You know, this same guy took notice of me when nobody else wanted me. Paul probably should have leaned over to Barnabas' side and said, you know what? You believe me and you're believing in this guy. I think I want to trust your ability to see what this man can become. But Paul didn't. Barnabas did. And later, Paul used John Mark. It's interesting, all because of one man being able to work in the background. Now, let me tell you something. The life builder often works with people that others criticize. But who cares about them? Who cares about the critics out there trying to destroy lives? They're a bunch of lazy bums who could care less really about building lives. The one thing they care about is building their platform so everybody looks at them. That's not what a life builder does. Life builder realizes this is not about me. This is about Christ. And Christ has the answer for these whose sin has broken. And let me invest in them. And yes, I'm going to be frustrated, but I got to believe in them. I got to see that vision. Thank God for the Barnabas. Churches that are filled with people like Barnabas are churches that'll take broken lives and turn them around and do something great in their life. If you're worried about having a museum church, you'll never be a life builder. But if you're just interested in being a toolbox to help a bunch of people get their lives back together for God to do something mighty through them, you can become the life builder. Oh, how this old world needs some churches that are filled with life builders who are willing to work in the shadows and let God determine who's the best. I think one day when we get to heaven, there's a little bit of dominology. I believe when we get to heaven at the judgment seat, I think Barnabas will be honored a little bit more than the Apostle Paul. You say, why? Because had it not been for Barnabas, Apostle Paul would have never become that apostle. Somebody has to work in the background. Somebody has to invest in those lives that nobody else will invest in and love them and care for them. But let me tell you something. You're not going to be recognized. A lot of times you'll be forgotten. But there's a judgment seat, my friend, and God sees it. And God will reward them. Thank God for the Barnabas. Why don't you be a Barnabas in your church and build some lives? Well, my friend, I hope this is a great help to you. Now, let's remember today, be good to everyone. Everyone's having a tough time. Have a great day, my friend.